So this webinar is being presented by me, Thomas Aaron of Fetch Masters Dog Training in Denver, Colorado. And it is for a service that we have called Fetch Masters Distance Coaching. We get calls from all over the country and even in other countries from people wanting our help with things. A lot of them are willing to drive their dogs here for board and train and that sort of thing. But a lot of people lately have been asking for private or distance coaching. So we have created a service called, it's at www.fetchmasters.online. It provides one-on-one coaching, a lot of content that you can watch. And so far, we've had really, really good results in it. From it. So today we're going to be talking about the socialization spectrum. This is part one of a two-part webinar, and we're going to talk a little bit about understanding dog socialization, and we're going to be talking about some problems that occur with socialization. There's going to be a part two of this webinar, which is going to really get into the nuts and bolts of living correctly with your dog, whether your dog is correctly socialized, over socialized, under socialized. We're going to be going into a lot of that. So if you have questions, you can text them to 720-837-2573. That is our business line. I will be watching that and occasionally looking at those questions and giving answers to them. And if for some reason I cannot get to you in this webinar, I'll have your text and I can email you an answer later. You can also email your questions to trainer@fetchmasters.com. So with no further ado, if I can get my PowerPoint slide to function. There we go. Let's talk about defining socialization. What socialization is not. A lot of people are under the impression that socialization is my dog loving every other dog. My dog has to, play with every other dog, be nice to every other dog, tolerate every other dog in its personal space. It has to tolerate people coming up to it and, invading its personal space. A lot of people want their dog to just be a social butterfly. That is actually not what socialization is about. I'm going to give you a human sort of explanation of what socialization sort of looks like to me. So if I were to take any of you and drop you off in a foreign, or not a foreign city, but a city here in the United States, and a city that you've never been in before, and tell you to find your way back home to whatever home state you're in. Well, we got more people coming in here. It's good. If I were to do that, you would be able to look around you at people and judge whether or not people are safe, whether or not they seem like a good person to ask for help. And you'd be able to steer away from people who seem dangerous. You'd be able to, and once you picked out the people you wanted to talk to, you could talk to them in a friendly way, ask the right questions. If somebody approached you that you were uncomfortable with, you'd figure out how to get yourself out of that situation, most likely. This is because you have dealt with thousands of people. You are very good at dealing with people. You can read people. And frankly, that's a lot like what socialization is with dogs. So with dogs, socialization doesn't mean that the dog has to love every other dog. It means that your dog can read dogs. It can read other dogs' body language. It can tell if that dog wants to play or doesn't want to play. If that other dog warns your dog away with a bark or something like that, your dog can take the hint and move away and give that other dog space. This is a lot of what a socialized dog looks like. It can read other dogs well. So how does socialization occur? First question to ask is when it occurs. Socialization, there's windows in a dog's developmental period where it is open to socialization. That's primarily before the dog is 20 weeks old. That's about 5 months old. If your dog is not pretty well socialized by 5 months old, you're going to start having a deficit in socialization. And from that time onward, it's going to get harder and harder to socialize your dog. If you come to me with a dog that is 2 years old and is severely under socialized, that dog is probably never going to generally like other dogs or other people if it hasn't been socialized with people. So that 20-week period is very, very important. So if you've got a new puppy, you need to be working on socialization um, before that you hit that 20-week mark with other people and with other dogs. Now, socialization partially is developed through a dog's litter mates. At some point, the litter mates start to grow up. They start to guard the things that are theirs. They play. That sort of thing. They do all these things that naturally socialize a dog with multiple other dogs. Typically there's more than one puppy in a litter. In Colorado, I believe there are laws that state that you cannot sell a puppy that's less than 8 weeks old. And this is one of the big reasons why. Before 8 weeks old, the puppy needs the care of its mother, the influence of its mother, the playtime with its litter mates. So if you get a puppy too early, you are likely to run into some socialization issues. So definitely wait till a puppy's at least 8 weeks old. A little bit older, 10 weeks, not a problem. No need to rush the puppy away from its mother. I put here that socialization is partially developed through play, but the truth is it's largely developed through play. A lot of stuff is going on when dogs are playing. It's not just play. When dogs are playing, they're figuring out things about each other. They're figuring out how rough can I be with this other dog before it reacts, right? Where's that boundary? Dogs learn boundaries from other dogs. They're figuring out, if I'm feeling intimidated or overwhelmed, what do I do about it to get out of that situation? So there's a lot of things that are going on. And when a dog plays with a number of other dogs, it learns to deal with other dog personalities, just like you as a human, you're socialized and you know how to deal with a number of human personalities. It's almost exactly the same thing with the dog. So if you have a young puppy, you want to allow it to play with a number of other dogs, because to a large degree, socialization is a numbers game. A dog just liking one other dog or two other dogs does not socialize it. That doesn't give it the breadth of experience, the depth of experience that playing with multiple dogs can provide. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move through this slideshow. If you remember, I'm just going to repeat, if you have questions, you can text us at the number that you see at the bottom of this screen, or you can email us at trainer@fetchmasters.com, and I will have a look at those every once in a while when there's a convenient stopping point and answer them, or if I can't get to them, I'll try to answer a few of them at the end of this presentation. So this is one that a lot of people don't like to think about, but a big part of socialization comes from firm older dogs. It could be from the mother, the father, or it could just be through some other dog that a young puppy barges up upon and invades its personal space. That dog is going to put that puppy in its place. And when that happens, that puppy is going to start to develop a sense of boundaries, of appropriate behavior and inappropriate behavior. It's going to start developing a knack for approaching other dogs with caution, and then warming up, rather than assuming that every other dog wants them in its face. So a lot of people get very, very alarmed when an older dog chastises their dog. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you put your dog in situations where another dog's going to injure it or hurt it. But the truth is, as a dog trainer, I've seen so many situations where um, one dog will scold another dog and it'll look pretty vicious, but there's no harm done. There's no puncture marks, nobody's hurt, there's no blood. And the truth is a dog's mouth is a lot like a human's hand. They can apply very gentle pressure, or they can do great damage. If your dog wasn't injured by the other dog didn't want to injure your dog. He was trying to communicate. Um, so this is part of the way that dogs learn, like it or not. All right, socialization problems. I want to hit on a few problems that are common in when we're talking about socialization. We run into a lot of them in Denver. Some of them are of no fault of the owner. Some of them are, a dog was a stray, it was abandoned, wasn't socialized. Some of the problems are because people did the wrong things. They put the dogs in the wrong situations, that kind of thing. So um, let's talk about a few of those. Okay, so I talked earlier about um, uh, there being about a 20-week mark in which a dog needs to be socialized before it's about 20 weeks old. It needs to have some quality socialization. If you wait too long, as I mentioned before, you start running into problems. And it seems to me that the more distant you get, the more set in its ways a dog becomes. I don't, I'm not sure of all the science of it, but I sort of equate it to this. If you take a 2 or 3 year old child and you start exposing them to a foreign language, they will get that language very, very, very quickly. They can learn a second language with no problem. If they have a mother that speaks one language and a father that can speak another, or something like that, the kid will very easily be bilingual, no problem whatsoever. But if you take me, I'm 50 years old, and my folks hail from Sicily. And so every couple of years, we go to Sicily to visit them. And Sicilians mostly speak Italian. If you get back in the Campania or the countryside, you'll find people who speak a different dialect that has some French influence in it. But I've been there 5 times now, and I still speak Italian worse than a 2 or 3 year old child. I have a decent vocabulary, but I can't conjugate verbs to save my life. I find it very, very difficult. It's the same way with socialization. The further a dog gets from that period where it's learning a language, body language, the rules of the language, of communicating and dealing with other dogs, the farther a dog gets from it, the harder it becomes to learn. So that 20-week period is pretty critical. Um, Sometimes bad socialization or poor socialization is caused by bad experiences. Now, a couple of things here. I think it's between maybe 8 and 12 weeks old. It varies a little bit from breed to breed, but between 8 and 12 weeks old, a dog is going through something called the first fear imprint period. And during that period, if a dog is traumatized, and in this case, traumatized by a person or traumatized by another dog, you can very well end up with fear-based issues that will affect that dog's socialization. And those fear-based issues may not go away without very, very comprehensive training. They may not go away completely at all. So bad experiences in that early period of life can mess things up. Even when a dog is within that 20-week period and he's being socialized and he's not in that first fear imprint period, let's say that you take your little puppy to the dog park and there's a bunch of bigger dogs running around and they're not meaning any harm, but they pounce your puppy trying to play with it and scare it to death. That's going to cause problems. That could cause long-term socialization issues. So you got to watch it when you are socializing your dog. You need to get your dog around dogs of a variety of sizes and personalities, but you also need to make sure that they're safe dogs. And you need to sort of anticipate things that can go wrong. Yeah, you don't want to have a bunch of bad experiences with your puppy. Um, that kind of plays into what I was saying. If you properly or improperly match dogs while you're trying to socialize them, you can cause problems. But even if you have a properly socialized dog and you mismatch it, one of the ones we see around here a lot is like somebody will take their really laid back dog of some kind and put it with some sort of high energy, hard playing dog like a boxer, and the dog will end up traumatized. It'll be scared of boxers or scared of dogs in general for a while. It'll take it a while to get over that. So you got to really watch improperly matching your dogs. Just like you try not to improperly match yourself. You don't hang out with groups of people that are going to make you feel intimidated or scared or anything like that. So same thing with your dog. You want to take the same sort of precautions. Um, this is one of the big ones. One of the big ones. So uh, I've traveled around the world, and one of the places that kind of jumps out at me when I'm talking about this is Amsterdam. And when my wife and I were in Amsterdam, everywhere we go, we observe dogs. We just watch, see what the dogs are like, see what we can pick up. And it was really interesting. Like Amsterdam has hordes of people at all times. It is extremely, extremely busy. Um, just elbow to elbow sometimes. And people are walking their dogs through that. And you do not see anyone going up to a person with the dog asking to pet it. They just let the dog go about its own business. Dog's not reacting to people. It's not trying to bite people. It's not scared, but people leave the dog alone. Um, you don't see people doing a lot of leash greetings and stuff like that. Um, people have a people over there for some reason. I don't know why culturally it's like this, but for some reason it seems to me that in some places people just let dogs sort of be natural. But we tend to not do that in bigger cities, at least in the United States. A lot of times out in the country and rural areas of the United States, people under socialize dogs. There may not be a lot of resources for them to socialize their dogs. But in big cities, people for some reason live vicariously through their dogs. They feel like their dog needs to meet every other person that it can find, and that actually over socializes a dog. A lot of times dogs, if they are led to every other dog they see to leash greet it, they often will come to a conclusion something like this: every other dog is, it's my right to have a social interaction with every other dog I see. Well, let me ask you this. If you're walking down the sidewalk of whatever town you live in and you see somebody coming toward you, and that person is uh, feverishly greeting every other person it sees. They're super excited. They're trying to shake hands and hug. And as you walk down the street, this person is moving from person to person, getting closer to you and closer to you and closer to you. How are you going to feel? You're probably going to move to the other side of the street. Um, you see that and you look at it as abnormal. And yet, somebody thinks that letting their dog drag them to every other dog it sees is somehow good. And the truth is, it's not. We have an epidemic in big cities in the United States of a, a behavior issue called leash aggression. And what leash aggression typically is a dog by nature moves toward what it's interested in and moves away from what it's afraid of or not interested in. But when you take a dog and you put it on a leash, you take away those options. And since a dog is a fight or flight animal, you're taking away flight, which only leaves fight. So what happens is after so many leash greetings and so many impolite, unstructured dogs that rush into another dog's face, that other dog starts to throw up an aggressive display to keep people away, or keep other dogs away from it. And this can happen with people too. I'm primarily talking about dogs here, but all this stuff applies to people too. Your dog does not need to meet every other person and every other dog it meets. It just does not. That is not socialization. Leash greetings are rarely socialization. They're more like a drive-by butt sniffing. Um, they're typically not a good thing. That's not how dogs socialize. Dogs mostly socialize by playing, not by sniffing each other's butt and invading each other's personal space on a leash. So in our next webinar, we're actually going to be talking a good deal about that. We're going to be talking about how to correctly live with your dog, whether your dog is correctly socialized, under socialized, or over socialized. And it's a thing, and it's not a fun thing. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they're over socializing their dog. Don't do that. Your dog doesn't need to socialize with every other dog it sees. The other owners typically don't like it. A lot of times the other dog doesn't like it. All right, I'll quit harping on that and move on. Now, guys, this is an important one, and it's bound to rub some people wrong. And I promise you I don't mean to, but um, doggy daycares and dog parks. I I thought I had both written down here, but I don't. But for the record, doggy daycares and dog parks, neither of them are always a good thing for a dog. I'll hit the easy one first. Dog parks. Um, that's a great place for your dog to get in a fight with another dog over a tennis ball. You have no idea what you're getting there. Doggy daycares have a number of problems. Let's go into all this. It's a sensitive topic because a lot of you like to bring your dogs to doggy daycares all the time. Your dog goes to doggy daycare 5 days a week, stays there all day while you're working, and it's playing with other dogs. Uh, and you think that's a good thing, and it may be. There are some dogs where that may be a good thing. So I'm not carte blanche kicking dog daycares under the bus in dog parks, but there's some things to be aware of. So problems with daycares and dog parks. Life is like a box of chocolates. Forrest Gump's famous saying. So is a dog daycare and a dog park. It's like a box of chocolates. You have no idea what you're going to get. In a dog park, you really have no idea what you're going to get. Some person with a semi-aggressive dog might bring their dog there because they think they're socializing it, when in fact the dog is way beyond its socialization window and is triggered by things like resource guarding its owner, guarding its tennis ball. And the other person just wants their dog to play with other dogs. But that's a perfect scenario to ruin your dog. And when you get a bunch of dogs running around, especially a bunch of dogs that have been playing together for a long time, they actually can develop sort of a pack mentality and gang up on new dogs. So you really have to watch dog parks. I always tell my clients, if you're going to go to a dog park, try to go at a time of day, either to a dog park or at a dog park during a time of day where there's not 1,000 other dogs. Get one or two other dogs. Test the waters if you can. Watch the other dogs interacting. Make sure they're nice dogs before you throw your dog in there. Now for dog daycares. Dog daycares are a little bit more complicated than a dog park because you typically have a lot of dogs in there. The truth is this: in most dog daycares, the doggy daycare attendants, they're college students, they're high school students, whatever. They're good people, nice people. They love dogs. Nothing here, but their understanding of dog behavior is typically minimal. And I've seen I've seen some bad things happen because of dog daycares, which I'm going to continue talking about here. But the attendants, sometimes you have a really good attendant who's really smart and is on top of their game. I would highly recommend that you find a day training program, which is sort of a dog daycare with a trainer there. That tends to be a little bit better on average than a typical doggy daycare. Actually, it tends to be a lot better on average. Um, a lot of people say my dog does great at daycare, and here's what I ask them. I say, how do you know? Have you seen your dog do great at daycare, or did somebody tell you that? A lot of times I say, well, they told me that, and I'm always suspicious of that because I don't know what the education is of the daycare attendants. Um, and if they say I have seen it, my next question is, what does your dog do at daycare? And the answers, if they say my dog does great, he plays with other dogs, voraciously and enthusiastically all day long. Okay. Now, if that's the case, uh, is your dog learning any impulse control in conjunction with that? Or is he learning to see every other dog as a guaranteed plaything? And if the person says, um, if they say, well, my dog plays a little bit, but mostly he hangs around the periphery of the daycare. He doesn't engage with the other dogs much, or he hangs real close to the daycare attendants. That throws up red flags because those are the things a dog at a daycare will do when it's uncomfortable. So you need to have a look at what your dog is actually doing at a daycare. And if you have questions about it, you can, even when you're not watching this video, you can always text Fetch Masters at the number or email us at the email address below if you want. Um, and we're happy to answer any questions for you. We give a lot of free advice. We don't charge for everything. But dogs, sometimes people think their dog is doing great at daycare because their dog isn't getting in fights. Well, sometimes a dog won't get in a fight because it feels severely outnumbered at a daycare. And so if it was one dog, maybe your dog would get frustrated and get in a fight because there's 30 dogs, your dog may actually just be really shut down. So I don't know if that's the case, but I'm not the biggest fan of dog daycares. I'm not wholesale against them, but I do advise you, if you're going to use a dog park or a doggy daycare, do your research, watch your dog, watch the other dogs there, watch the attendants, see how they handle other dogs. If they see dogs getting too rough or ganging up on another dog, what do they do? Do they stand there and look at their cell phone or look at Facebook, or do they break them up and give them a timeout? What do they do? And figure out if that's actually a good place for your dog. Hey, real quick, I'm going to jump in with a couple of things. Number one, so Fetch Masters Online, we provide a lot of one-on-one coaching, and we have 3 different plans that provide different levels of one-on-one coaching. To anybody that watches this through to the end, whether it's the live webinar or the video, which I will post later, there is a discount code, and that discount code will give you a perpetual $10 off per month discount on any of our 3 training plans. So that'll be at the end of this webinar. Okay, moving on. Serious fights, which can happen at daycares or at dog parks, can set your dog's comfort level with other dogs way back, especially if your dog is on the losing end of it. Even if your dog's on the winning end of it, it's a problem. When dogs start winning a lot of fights, they start seeing that as a method to solve issues very rapidly. And so usually when a dog starts getting in fights, that the frequency of that starts to increase. If your dog is on the losing end of that and gets injured, that can cause your dog to be extremely uncomfortable around other dogs. Now, if your dog's already well socialized, that usually can be fixed by managing what kind of situations you put your dogs in for a while. Yeah, so you gotta watch out if you don't want your dog getting in serious fights, and those are the primary places that they happen, right? Dog parks and daycares. This, my friends, is my favorite. I am a serious fan of backyard play dates. That is 1 or 2 other dogs with your dog in a backyard or a neutral area. It doesn't have to be a backyard. It could be a fenced in area out in a field or whatever, but 1 or 2 other safe dogs playing with your dog. There are clubs, like if you go to I think it's the Yahoo meetup groups. I think they're still owned by Yahoo. You can find uh, socialization groups and stuff like that, and you can meet people and get together with a number of people. Remember, socialization is a numbers game, uh, both to create a socialized dog and to maintain a socialized dog. You can lose socialization with lack of use over a period of time. So you want to maintain it, you want to get it, and you want to maintain it. But meet people, meet other people with dogs in various clubs or whatnot, or talk to a local dog trainer, or make some friends, wherever you socialize, and set up a play date with a number of dogs. That is a very, very good way to socialize your dog. It's way less error prone than dog parks, where the dogs are typically in too big of an area to manage, or they're cramped into too tight of an area, like they might be at a doggy daycare. So anyway, I'm a big fan of the backyard play date. Highly recommend it. A couple of passing thoughts, and then we have a couple of questions coming in, so I'm gonna hit those. A couple of passing thoughts, just things that I hear and I deal with, and I just want to sort of address. Um, a lot of people will say, but my under socialized dog gets along with the other dogs in my household. Uh, Getting along with a couple of other dogs does not make a socialized dog. As I mentioned earlier, it is a numbers game. And even like a an unsocial or person who, like, I have a friend. Let me go on a tangent here. I have a friend. I'm not going to say his name, but he has a hard time with groups of people. He's not a fan of groups of people. Not his thing. It makes him extremely uncomfortable, and he will try to escape that situation if he can. That said, he's one of my best friends. He's got a wife. They're close, and he has other friends. Right? A, a person not being great in social situations doesn't mean they can't have friends. A dog that can't read other dogs well, who is under socialized, can still get along with a few other dogs. Um, but that doesn't make the dog socialize. And if the dog's of a certain age, you may be able to get it to make some friends, and that would be a good thing. But it may never really be a social butterfly in general. The other thing is people with under socialized dogs, like one of the training, they go out for a walk with their unsocialized dog. Somebody lets their dog drag them up, on the leash to meet the other dog, or somebody has an off leash dog that rushes up to the under socialized dog, and the under socialized dog snaps, and people call and say, well, I want my dog to be good with other dogs who run up to greet him. That's just not really practical. It's not really practical. You're not going to take an under socialized dog, and I'm talking more about moderate to severe under socialization, and realistically expect to train it to love other dogs invading its personal space. You can work on bettering it over the long term by making lots of dog friends. But one of the best things you can do is avoidance. Because when you practice avoidance, you're basically being your dog's advocate. That's very important for you, to be your dog's advocate. Don't let other dogs rush up on your dog. Don't let other people do that. Tell them to stay back. Your dog doesn't like other dogs. And just by virtue of not putting your dog in tight spots all the time, your dog will actually, over a period of time, start to let its guard down. And when it does that, it might actually get to where it can tolerate that sort of thing when it happens on accident. So anyway, those are a couple of things I had as notes that I sort of wanted to hit. So I am going to get to the question, so hang in there. If you guys want to listen, I think there's 2 or 3 good questions here. If you are living, or the next webinar we're going to do is going to be living correctly with your dog, right? And this is going to deal with if your dog is correctly socialized, under socialized, or over socialized. We're going to deal with all 3 of those scenarios. We're going to talk about some more about methods to correctly socialize your dog. We're going to talk about the methods that we sort of espouse here at Fetch Masters. And so if you want to see that video, it's not going to be public. I'm making this one public because I want to put out some good information to you guys to help you understand socialization. But it's going to be in our video library on at fetchmasters.online. So real quick plug here, if you'll allow it. Again, Fetch Masters Online, lots of one-on-one coaching. Not much different than private coaching in your home. We can have video chats with you or whatever, so we can see your dog, see your home. So if you're not in our service area, if you're not in the Denver area, we would still love to help you. This is what we do. This is what we love. And we tend to get good results from it. So it's coming in part 2. It's at www.fetchmastersonline. And now the discount code, you want to write this down. That's the discount code. And with that, you will get a perpetual $10 per month discount on, hold on, what did that say? $10 per month discount on any of the plans, whether the bronze, silver, gold, whichever one you want. Okay, let me go to the questions here real quick and hit those. Okay, we have a question from a Sandy. I don't see her in the chat or in the in attendance right now, so she may have had to check out. But she says, I just got a mini poodle from a shelter. It seems to be good with adults, but doesn't like kids. Or so I'm assuming she's talking about really small kids. So how do I socialize them with kids? Now, your dog's probably, if your dog gets along fine with adult humans, it's probably plenty well socialized with humans. The problem with little kids, Sandy, is that they look like little dog eating trolls from the dog's perspective, right? They show their teeth when they smile. Well, when a dog shows its teeth to another dog, that's a threat. They stare at the dog intently. Well, when another dog stares at a dog intently, that's often a threat. They move straight at the dog in a fast way. Well, when another dog makes a straight approach at another dog face to face, that's often a threat. So if you have a dog that is afraid of little kids, there's a couple of things you can do. You can work on counter conditioning that dog to the look and movement of kids. I wouldn't let the kids ambush your dog and run up on it, but let it watch kids play. And while it's watching kids play, every time it looks at a kid with interest, tell it, good job, right? Give it a treat. Counter condition it. Teach it that kids moving around mean good things. And then start letting little kids, as long as the dog isn't going to bite them, you're responsible for the safety of those little kids. As long as that dog isn't going to bite the kids, let them gently pet the dog. Hold the kid's wrist so that it can't grab the dog's hair or be too rough. Show the kid how to pet the dog. And as the kid gets older, of course, you want to teach the kid how to appropriately mix with dogs. Okay, let me find this next question. There it is. We have a question from John H. John H. So John, he asks, I want my dog to be a therapy dog, but it takes it a while to warm up to people. Okay, so one of the ways I would measure a dog's socialization level, now the first way is you measure how well it can read other dogs or other people, right? If it can read people correctly, it'll start to learn how to interact with them. But another way that I measure socialization with people anyways is how long does it take your dog to warm up to another person? If it takes your dog 2 days to warm up to another person, you got the wrong dog to be a therapy dog, John. But if your dog warms up to another person in, say, 30 seconds, that's not too shabby. And frankly, that's not necessarily unhealthy. I mean, warming up a little better would be good, right? But what you can do is over time, and again, your dog's age is going to play into how quickly this works, or even if it fully works at all. But over time, you can introduce it to a lot of other people. You probably want to get it, if possible, into an environment similar to where you want to do therapy dog work, like maybe a hospital or something like that, or some building that looks like that. And introduce it to a lot of people, and have those people just toss a treat on the ground to your dog. I don't like people holding a treat for a scared dog to come up and get it. The dog shouldn't have to do that, be brave to get a treat. What you want to do is just show the dog you mean you mean good, or other people mean good things. So just toss the treat on the ground in front of the dog and let the dog get it, or toss it behind the dog, let the dog move away and get it. That's all good. And then just sit there and let the dog warm up to the person. Don't make the dog uh, warm up at a speed that's not natural for it. Just let it warm up. It'll warm up. And soon as the dog comes up to the person can pet it. And I'd suggest petting it by scritching it under the chin rather than putting the hand over the dog's head, which can be intimidating for some dogs. And do that a lot of times, John. Do it a ton. And if your dog is going to get to the point where it's useful as a therapy dog, that's the sort of thing that'll get it there. If it's not, if it doesn't warm up to that, then you may have the wrong dog. We don't necessarily get to shove the peg that is your dog into any shape hole. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. We have a few more questions, but I am up on time here, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. And I want to thank everybody who joined us, those who sent questions, those who I did not get to, I will text back or email. Folks, use that discount code. I would love to see you at fetchmasters.online. It's not online dog training. It's not YouTube. It is a distance coaching program, one-on-one private coaching. There are libraries of content on it that will be helpful to you, but that's not really the big point of the website. If you need help with your dog, we'll help you with it. Anyway, take care, and I look forward to seeing you later.